Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. It's been a few weeks since we did an episode, actually, and that's primarily because it's been slow news, but also because I've been taking a little break. I've been trying to reorganize myself in terms of I was close to burnout, basically, across my content, both here and on Peralta's Place, and I needed just a little bit of space to kind of get that right, and it seemed that the slow news was kind of happening, so it felt like the right point to do it. So that sort of worked out. And I wasn't actually going to do this episode today, but I'm here to talk about The Witcher, specifically The Witcher season 4. Now, I don't believe I watched season 3 of the Netflix show, actually, if I'm being completely honest. But season 4 is the first season with Liam Hemsworth taking over the role from Henry Cavill. Of course, that was announced a number of years back now, but it's looks like it's finally happening, which feels like a fever dream that took that long. But anyway, what's important about that is that I want to discuss what that means for the show and how I actually feel like the Netflix show has damaged the Witcher franchise, in my opinion. So what I want to say first is I don't think... How would I put this nicely? I don't think Liam Hemsworth has the same gravitas as Henry Cavill in the role. From the trailer we've gotten so far, it just doesn't feel... How do I put this? Henry Cavill inhabited The Witcher in the sense of it being a little bit more gritty. And I don't like using the word gritty because I don't necessarily lean into everything must be gritty. But The Witcher world is a grim world. And upon the grimness, it is also... it's not a pretty world, and what I mean by that is not just the world itself, as in the villains and the evilness, but The Witcher is real. It doesn't have polished, people, so to speak. The only people who are somewhat polished, I mean, this is a big part in the books, is that the mages alter their appearances essentially to keep themselves looking youthful and vibrant and wonderful. Whereas the common folk and the people around them are like people you would see in the wild is the best way I can put it. People you would see in everyday life, maybe not on the cover of Vogue, maybe not, those types of people. Yes, of course, there's exceptions. But there are a lot more your average people. And it feels like, I know it sounds really silly, it feels like seeing Liam Hemsworth inhabit the role versus Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill managed to make that feel real, that Geralt isn't meant to be this pretty man, so to speak. And then I feel like Liam Hemsworth has come into the role and somewhat discarded that bit. Like Geralt, to clarify, Geralt isn't meant to be a not attractive character, but he's not meant to be a attractive character. That's not really his thing. That's not really what he cares about. That's not really what it draws people to him. So I suppose in that way, what I'm trying to say is it feels like they're almost CWing the show. Does that make sense? Like even the setting and the characters have been sort of well, how do I put it? They've been sanitized is the wrong word. It's not about sanitization. It feels like gutted. They've been gutted in a way. They've turned it into general fantasy slop, in my opinion, and it really does frustrate me as someone who's read all the Witcher books, played the Witcher games, mostly. One I didn't complete. I read about it instead because that's a hard game. That's a hard game to get through. And I have board game. I mean, there's a Witcher board game right there. There's my Witcher Ronin stuff there. Up the top, I have all Witcher stuff as well. So, like, Witcher is a franchise I'm very dedicated to. I love it, and to see something that you so love be desecrated. And this isn't just a case of, you hear this a lot with people about Star Wars, you hear this about Star Trek, you hear this about Marvel. People, it's just not what it was, or not even just not what it was, but it's woke, or it's that type of stuff. I'm not talking about that type of stuff here. What I'm talking about is a flagrant disregard for the source material. Now, to be fair, the trailer for season 4 doesn't necessarily depict that specifically, but knowing that the reason that Henry Cavill left was in part because of the sort of Superman scenario, but also because of the fact that the show was kind of going in a direction that was so vastly different from the books. It tells me everything I need to know about where this season's going. And the fact that they thought, and this is my even more my concern, the fact that they think that it will be that easy to replace Henry Cavill. And let me clarify, not necessarily just because it's Cavill. I don't think that there aren't other actors out there who couldn't play The Witcher. But the fact that they think it's that easy to replace Henry Cavill, who was an avid fan, and basically by him leaving, it shows that there's a lack of trust in the show from the creative side. Is yeah, I mean that's telling in and of itself. But we all know that even the spin-off stuff they tried to do with Michelle Yeoh didn't succeed either. That went sort of down the pan, and it's a funny period, I think, for The Witcher, because you've got Game 4 coming out, you've got series story coming out within maybe a year, 2 years, and the show is ongoing. And again, what I guess frustrates me is if someone's first introduction to the Witcher universe is the show, they think it's a load of steaming typical fantasy trope bullshit. And if you read the books or play the games, you know that yes, it does borrow from typical fantasy tropes. Does it have dwarves? Does it have elves? Yes. But there's so much more rich lore in there. There's so many more different things that they try to do. The way that they portray their villains and the way that they, the lesser evil, is such a good story, because you have to like everything that is in The Witcher is so morality questioning, right? It asks you to question yourself. Like you have a viewpoint and then asks you to question that. And like all of the villains, is he a good guy at heart and is following just what he has to do or feels like he needs to do? That not necessarily saying that's the case, but you know him from early on in his life, and you see someone who you think is somewhat not entirely reprehensible, and he does clearly have some affection for Ciri, as you learn throughout the games and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a very like there's other villains as well, of course, but it's very interesting. And then the way that they deal with the elves is these creatures who have come from another land, very Tolkien. Apart from obviously the elves are meant to be like someone who's come from across the seas in the Lord of the Rings, but very Tolkien in terms of having this race of elves that are on high, and then having sort of them only kind of appear at certain points in the narrative, but they're sort of the evil version in this world. Like that's what I mean. Like, so there's so much good lore. It's really frustrating to see these stories, and some of it was adapted well, and I think that's what's even like the most frustrating part, right? That you had season 1, and season 1 did relatively well, well, in fact, pretty well at sort of adapting what we knew from the books and the games. And then season 2 onward, the beginning of season 2 wasn't too bad. Then season 2 onward just kind of decayed. Like I don't think I have another word for it other than decayed. It just obliterated it. And yeah, I don't know. I guess what I'm coming to with all this, and I maybe have rambled a little bit more than I wanted to on this. But to be fair, I wasn't going to record an episode a day if it wasn't that I was somewhat annoyed by this. So yeah, so I think it's only it's not the end of the world if I ramble a bit. But what really frustrates me about this is that it's just a deep lack of care for source material, using the Witcher brand to try and push some kind of slop, really. And what's so frustrating is they had a relatively good cast. I think Ciri's actress is pretty good. I like Anya Chalotra as Yennefer, even though it's a very different Yennefer to the books and the games. She does really well with it. And then as well, Henry Cavill, even though Henry Cavill was different to the Witcher that I expected in my head. A different Geralt. The fact that I liked him still, knowing that he cared for the lore, that he cared for that universe, and knowing that that isn't where this show is going, and that this show is kind of churning out slop. Now I keep saying slop, but it very much did feel that way when they just kind of went off track. Yeah, I don't know how I feel. And what I don't love here is I feel like I can't give many redeeming qualities. Like, again, I can say about the beginning of the show, but I can't give many redeeming qualities to it because I really didn't don't like the way they're going with this. And I'm so often sat here going, well, there's this, and then there's that. I can't do it this time. I genuinely can't do it. I genuinely can't sit here and say, hey, I like this, or hey, that might be interesting, because it just doesn't look like there's many redeeming qualities at all. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll watch a little bit of it to see if I'm probably not going to, if I'm being completely honest, but maybe I will. And if I do, you guys will hear about it. And if I can find even the slimmest pickings of intrigue or interest in there, I'll let you guys know. I'm going to leave it there for this. I'm happy that we managed to record something at all, because obviously we weren't going to. And yeah, I shall see you guys soon for more. I'm unsure what we'll be discussing next week. The week after will be Marvel Zombies. But yeah, thank you guys. As always, I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.